Hey guys, so a new dev blog came out for Raids 2. It's not going to be released, I think, until around summer, but they want to kind of get their ideas out there to the community so that we can kind of give them some feedback, say if we like it, say if we don't like it, because at the end of the day, this has to pass a poll to get into the game, so they want to get it as close to the players' liking as possible to give it the best chance to pass. So I'm going to go over the dev blog. They also released some tourney worlds today where we can test out these items. So if you want to test these out, go into the tourney world and you can try them out. They open up the entire world, so you can go do like Bandos, God Wars Dungeon, Slayer Task, whatever you want to do. So during this video, I'll show some clips of me testing them out and talking about how good I thought they were. First thing I had to do though, I had to go and see how lucky I was by trading Infernal capes and trying to get the Infernal pet. I ended up getting it in 16 capes, so not bad at all. It's a 1 in 100 drop. A lot of the dev blog talks about kind of the lore and story around Raids 2. I'm not too interested in that. I'll just say it's over in the vampire place near Barrows, that area. And vampires, I guess, are gonna watch you for enjoyment, trying to beat the bosses and puzzle rooms and that sort of stuff. There is no quest requirement. There is going to be a new quest that comes out that will give you a teleport right to the Raids 2 area. So that will be pretty helpful, but it's not required. So the new quest is called A Taste of Hope. It's going to be a mid-level quest. Peers won't be able to do it because I know in order to do Darkness of Hellville, which is a requirement, you have to do an Aid of Marique or one of those quests in that storyline, which gives defense XP. But if you're a Zerker or higher, you should be able to do it. And then the big thing that we're going to talk about is the rewards that you get from Raids 2. Like I said, I will go into Raids 2 a little bit more, just how the mechanics work. If you're a hardcore Iron Man, if you die in there, it's a permadeath, or I mean, whatever, you like lose your status. Basically, you're going to go through a series of rooms. You bring your own supplies in. You won't be making any supplies in there like you currently do at Raids 1. And the thing in there, when you die, any of you guys have ever played, I think it's called Search and Destroy. I used to play that in MW2 a long time ago. When you die, you basically can like spectate your teammates, and then they have to finish off the boss room. And if they finish off the boss room, I think you get revived for the next rooms. But you don't get revived until your team has passed a room. So if your entire team dies, that is considered like a full fail, and the entire raid is ended, you lose, and it's considered as a death. So you're going to lose your items, but they will go to a grave system, and then you're going to probably have to go and pay money to get your items back, kind of similar how it works with Vorkath. Hardcore Iron Man, they lose their status on the first death though. Like, they don't have to wait for their entire team to die. If they just themselves die, then they lose their status. And I think they're looking to make it pretty challenging. For the best results, they're looking to make it for 3 to 5 players. 5 players is the max. And they've said if you try and solo it, it's going to be pretty near impossible, if not impossible. That's still up in the air depending on what rooms they put in and how the rooms are, but they're not going to make it easier in order to allow people to solo. So they're going to put in the mechanics they want in there, and if some mechanic is impossible to solo, then it's impossible to solo. They're not going to try and make it soloable. So on to the rewards. In this raids, you're going to get loot from every room as you progress through the raid. So even if you don't finish the entire raid, you should still get some loot. But I think the big loot, like the uniques, won't be rolled until the very last room. So you will have to finish the entire raid if you want a chance at the best items. So the first rewards we're going to go over is the new potions. So for all these new potions, you need vials of blood, and they haven't really talked about where you get those from, I think. I imagine you probably get them as a reward off of Raids 2. It's probably just going to be some common stackable drop that you get. So the first potion is the Bastion potion. Basically like a super combat potion, but for range. So you're still going to get the regular range boost, but it combines a super defense with it. So we've been wanting these for a long time in old school, and we're finally getting them. It took them long enough. So to make the potion, you need a vial of blood, cadentine, and a wine of Zamorak. It takes 80 herblore, and it gives 155 XP. Next is the battle mage potion. Same thing as the last one, but for magic, you combine a magic potion and a super defense potion. It also requires 80 herblore and gives 155 XP when you make the potion. The potion takes a cadentine, a potato cactus, and a vial of blood. And then finally is basically like an overload, sort of. It combines the super combat potion with the 2 previous ones I just mentioned, so you don't get any extra boosts, and Ceridome and Bruise and that type of stuff will still lower your stats, and they won't. This potion doesn't heal your stats up, so Basically, it just saves inventory space if you want to use all combat styles. It's called the Totality Potion. It requires 96 herblore and it grants 180 XP when making it. The ingredients are a vial of blood, Torstal, super combat potion, ranging potion, and a magic potion. Then there is the Vigor Potion, which requires level 88 herblore and it gives 110 XP when making it. So the potion restores 7 plus 25% of your prayer level, which I think is about the same as a super restore, but then it also applies a stamina potion boost to you, except for instead of lasting 2 minutes, it only lasts 1 minute. It requires a vial of blood, amethyst crystal, and a ranar. Then there's a super prayer potion. So this one gives you 7 plus 25% of your prayer, so basically once again like a super restore, but it restores an extra 6 prayer points over 30 seconds. It takes 91 herblore and it gives 120 herblore experience. It takes a vial of blood, ranar, snapdragon, and snape grass to make. So that's it for the potions. I don't really see the bastion potion being used too much. Same with the battle mage potion. Maybe the bastion potion, which is the ranging and defense potion, I can see that maybe being used for PKing, but pretty much for most PVM, if you're going to be super defense potting, you're probably going to be using Ceridome and Bruise instead of an actual super defense potion. And the battle mage potion, like you magic pot pretty much nowhere, so I don't see that being used anywhere. And the totality potions, maybe I would see those being used, actually I could see those being used at like DKs, where you want both the ranging and the melee boosts. The Vigor Potion, Stamina plus Prayer Potion, I can see that being used at Ceridome and God Wars, in raids, and any other place where you want Prayer Potions and Stamina Potions. Super Prayer Potion, anywhere where you want Prayer, so that will probably be helpful pretty much anywhere. Although, you have to remember the vials of blood may cost quite a bit, so it may not actually even be worth it to use some of these at some places because the cost may just be too high. So up next we have the Infernal Defender, so the next upgrade to Defenders, and this would be the best strength for shield slot in the game. Dragon Defender gives a plus 6 strength bonus, this gives a plus 8, so it's actually 2 higher than the Dragon Defender. Usually they only go up 1 strength bonus at a time, but there's a 2 strength jump here, which puts this above the Dragon Fire Shield, which used to have the highest strength bonus for shield in the game, and it also has about 2 higher attack bonus and 2 higher defense bonus against melee. Its magic and range defense and attack is actually a little bit worse than the Dragon Defender. So the Defender would raise your max hit by 1 for some gear setups with some weapons. Plus it's plus 2 strength over a Dragon Defender, so that's basically like half a hit higher, I think. So some setups would give you like 44.7, and then that always rounds down, so it'd become 44. And then if you were using a Dragon Defender and you had that, and then you swap it out for this Defender, that would go up to 1 higher. An absolute maxed out setup, the max of a whip is 49. With the Infernal Defender, it would go up to 50. With the Tentacle, max is 50, and it would go up to 51 with the Infernal Defender. So it would raise DPS, and also the accuracy is a little bit better as well. So it's not really much else to say about the Infernal Defender. It's simply just a little bit of a DPS increase for melee. Next up is the Judgement Prayer Scroll. I think this one could be pretty interesting. Right now it's pretty underpowered. Basically what it does is it's an overhead prayer, so you can't use any protection prayers while this is active. It requires level 85 prayer, and what it does is it increases your attack bonus, or I mean your attack level by 10%, and you can stack this with piety or like the 15%. So if you had the 15% attack prayer on plus this, then you would have a 25% attack bonus. Right now it's a little underpowered. It reduces your defense by 50% while active, and 1/6 of all damage that you deal is removed from your prayer. So there's a pretty big downside to using it. Right now I don't really see it being useful pretty much anywhere because of the fact you can't use protection prayers with it on, and higher accuracy isn't exactly the best thing. In old school, accuracy doesn't count for a lot unless you're fighting a boss monster which actually has high defense, and in that case you need your protection prayer, so maybe you would throw it on for like a spec, but that's it. For PKing, it could be sort of useful, but in PKing, again, most people usually want to use overheads when you're tri-bridding, and if you're not tri-bridding, if you're just like edge PKing, then this will this almost basically doubles smite against you. If someone's smiting you plus you have this on, your prayer is going to go down pretty quick. And accuracy, again, even when PKing, isn't that helpful. I know that because I have quite a few 99 attack builds. It is sort of helpful, but not super helpful. And it gives you combat levels and lowers your defense. But I think could make this prayer pretty fun and actually useful, though, is to also add the 10% boost to strength as well. And they should make it so that you can't flick it. Like if you turn this prayer on, it has to be active for at least like 10 seconds or until your prayer runs out. Next up is the Sanguine staff. And it's basically a Trident of the Swamp with an additional little effect. It will heal. It has a 1 in 8 chance of healing 50% of the damage that you deal. So for tasks like Kraken, basically you're never going to have to bank. You can just sit there and AFK that forever and you most likely won't die. It'd be pretty helpful at like DKs and other places where you want to use
I ended up testing out the staff
the
over
healing
DKs.
isn't like a ton. Guthan's has a 1 in 4 chance of healing 100% of the damage that you deal, although it does have worse DPS. Blood Barrage will heal you. It has a 100% chance of healing you. I think like half of the damage that you deal or 1/4 of the damage that you deal, but it works every time that you... So the healing effect really isn't that great. So I ended up taking it to DKs to test it out there. The healing wasn't as much as I was expecting. It's really not that great. I was using some of the other new gear. Because of all the new gear, you could actually just sit like in the center of DKs and pretty much just AFK there. But that's more due to some of the other armor that I'm going to look at later. The staff itself isn't that great. Like the 1 in 8 chance of healing really is pretty low. Like I was usually only getting like 1 or 2 heals per kill on Rex, which I think if you go with a full defense setup, is enough to allow you to just sit in AFK in the middle of DKs. But if you really need some good healing, Blood Barrage is definitely a lot better for the healing. Basically where you'd want to use the staff is where you would normally use a Trident, but you want to spend a little bit extra money and you want a little bit of a passive heal that isn't a huge heal, but just a little bit. I definitely don't think it's very overpowered. I would vote this in. In fact, I think it might need a little bit of a buff for it to be worth a lot anyway. As it is now, I don't see it being worth over, say, 100 mil long term. And it actually would be really good at raids when you're doing the hand, you use a Trident. So basically this gives you the best mage DPS in the game while also passively healing you. So really the reason why I'm saying it's not very strong right now is because there aren't too many current places in the game where I see it being very useful. But just thinking about it, best DPS, best mage DPS plus passively healing you, it could be very good in certain circumstances. I think just currently, as the game is right now, there aren't too many places where you'd want to use it. Next is the Grassy Rapier. And this is basically like a Abyssal Tentacle with 2 extra things. It has an aggressive style. The whip only has controlled, which gives +1 attack, strength, and defense, while aggressive, which this rapier has, gives +3 strength. And it has its attack bonus in stab rather than slash. So monsters that are weak to stab, this is going to be a whole lot better than the Zamihasa, which was the previous best in slot stab weapon. An absolutely max setup. This should only have a 51 max hit, while the Tentacle also should have a 51 max hit. But if we had any more strength bonus after raids too, like I think just 1 more strength bonus, the Rapier max hit would go to 52. So it would be 1 better than the Tentacle in that case. So the staff requires 75 magic and the Rapier requires 75 attack. Didn't mention that before. So I tested the Rapier at Vorkath because that is weak to stab. And it was working really well. I felt like it was hitting like 50s and stuff, and it felt like it was pretty accurate. And using the Rapier saves you the cost of bolts, which it's probably like a few 100k per hour. But then I looked at the DPS calculator, and Dragon Hunter Crossbow is a lot better than the Rapier. So even though it felt like it was doing pretty well, Dragon Hunter Crossbow is still by far the best option for Vorkath. I then moved on to Rune Dragons and tried it out there, and I haven't done too much Rune Dragons before, so it's hard to say the difference between it and like using a Zamihasta, but it was pretty accurate, and I was killing the dragons in probably like 30 seconds or something like that. And of course it would replace the whip for Slayer because it is better than the whip. It's about the same as the Tentacle, but the Tentacle costs money to use, whereas the Rapier has no repair cost. So pretty much anywhere where you'd normally use a whip or a Tentacle whip, you could put in a Rapier there instead of using the whip. Unless something is weak to slash, that is the only time where you'd want to use a whip over the rapier. So the rapier actually would be used in quite a few situations because people use whips all the time. So anywhere where you're using a whip, just about you'd replace the whip with the rapier. And then not only that, but a lot of the places where you use a hosta, you would also replace the hosta with the rapier in those situations as well. So while it's not a lot better than the whip, it is a little bit better, and everyone always goes for the very best thing. So I can see this being in very high demand because of how many places it's useful at. And then finally we have the Justiciar armor. It's pretty tanky armor. It has slightly higher defense bonus than Torag, but it also has a prayer bonus, which is helpful. And the main thing about it is it has a special effect if you're wearing the entire set. If you're wearing an entire set, it has a damage reduction bonus. And the amount of damage reduction is based on your defense bonus. If something is attacking with stab attack, it would go against your stab defense. If you have 300 stab defense, it's whatever your defense is over 3,000. So if you have 300 stab defense, it'd be 300 over 3,000, and that is your damage reduction. So 300 over 3,000 is 10%, so you'd have 10% damage reduction. If you had 600 over 3,000, that would be 20% reduction. It requires 75 defense to use. So this armor is kind of the other thing I was using back on the DKs, and kind of what Woox was testing, if you could just tank DKs, just kind of like AFK them, be able to heal back all the damage that's done just with the new staff. And so I decided to go over to the fight caves and test it out there with an Ellie, this full armor, the new Rapier, Primordials, Torture Amulets, and basically I went in and I was just planning on AFKing the entire thing, see how far I could get. I bring in some Sanfus and some Brews and some Super Combats, and I ended up bringing a lot more Brews than I needed. Like if I would have swapped out 3 or 4 Brews for Super Restores, I could have done the entire fight caves with AFKing. And I don't mean like sort of AFKing, like people currently kind of say that the fight caves are AFK, but I mean like full on AFK. Like I would click on my screen maybe once every 2 minutes, or like whenever my prayer was low, I'd click on my restore potion. That's basically it. Like I didn't click on any monsters, even on the 360 waves when there was the major. I'd literally just let my account sit there and auto retaliate everything in the room and finish everything itself, and I was doing perfectly fine. Like if I had a better ratio of Brews to restores, I would have made it all the way to the end to Jad pretty easily. Amount of tanking you can do with this armor is pretty insane. The Ellie has a 25% damage reduction 75% of the time or 70% of the time, so that reduces a lot of damage right there. And then this armor reduces, I had something like 400 defense bonus, so that's like another 15% or something like that. So there's pretty big damage reduction. Then you also have pretty high defense bonus itself, which stops a lot of damage from ever happening in the first place. I protect from magic up, so that stopped all the magic damage, which was the only defense bonus that I had low. And even against the 360s, which would melee me, and they can hit the same with melee as they can with mage, or pretty close I think, and they can hit pretty accurately normally, but even against them I was tanking just fine. I would have liked to see what it was like fighting Jad with I would have just camped Mage Prey on Jad to see if I could have defeated them that way. I'm pretty sure I could have, that's how good it is. So if you've never gotten a Fire Cape before, you for some reason can't do it still, just get some of this armor, get a Rapier, get an Ellie, and you should be good to go. Like pretty much anyone can get a Fire Cape if you have this gear, because you can basically AFK the entire thing. Your account will do it for you. And of course this armor is going to translate into other parts of the game. It's really powerful. But kind of like the wand, like currently there isn't a whole ton of places where you'd want to use this over better DPS armor, but it could be very good. And the new raids too, I'm pretty sure is pretty defense heavy, so it would be insanely good there, I'm sure. And next up we have the Vampirium Vambraces. So these be the new best in slot range glove. They give 14 range attack. The previous best was Barrow's gloves with 12. And not only that, they also have a 2 range strength bonus. They require 75 range and defense to wear. And the raids 2 would actually drop like some item that you would attach to an item that's already in game. You would attach it to Ranger gloves, which you get from clue scrolls. A lot of people made a lot of money off those once this dev blog came out, because they are a pretty limited item, so they shot up in price a lot after this dev blog. So those would be used anywhere where you're purely doing range. So Armadillo, And I can't really think of anything else off the top of my head. Next up is the Scythe of Vitur. So the Scythe requires 75 attack and strength to wield, and it has two variants, an uncharged version and a charged version. So in order to charge the Scythe, you need, it's 1 1/100th of a vial of blood and 3 blood runes for every charge. So for 100 charges, you would need a full vial of blood and 300 blood runes. So that's going to be pretty expensive to use, and right now it's pretty underwhelming, so I imagine they're going to probably buff this. There is its stats. It's a really slow two-handed weapon, and yet its bonuses are worse than a whip. The thing that makes it so it's actually okay is the bonus on it. It can hit up to 3 enemies at once in a 1x3 square, and each swing can hit a large enemy up to 3 times, but it has a max of doing 3 hits at once. So the first hit does 100% damage, the second does 50%, and the third does 25%. So right now it's actually worse than a whip, I'm pretty sure, so I bet they're going to buff it before they pull it. So I tested it at Bandos a little bit, and I got no kills. There was quite a few people there. I didn't stick around very long, so I didn't really get too much from that. Couldn't really tell if it was good or not, but I'm leaning on the side that it's really not that good. Then I thought maybe it'd be good for training, because you can hit up to 3 enemies at once. So I decided to go try some training over in the Apital tunnels on the monkeys with the Salvami, see if that would be some awesome experience. I went and did that, and I ended up getting like 105k XP per hour. So not bad, but also still not that good. You can get up to like 150k per hour in Nightmare Zone with DH. So right now I'm really not seeing where this Scythe is useful. It's not good for anything as far as I can tell. Or at least not better than our current best in slot stuff. And then the last thing is just a Shroud, which is basically a cosmetic item that shows off how many raid 2s that you have completed.